Welcome, guys. We're back here with the Play Hustle, and we have Fusions, the guy from UK, the Minecraft man, the Square man, the Risa, whatever you wants to be. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Have you gone insane yet from not playing on PTR? Or with the new patch, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to like grind right now with the old Orisa. There's like very low incentives, so I've just been practicing like Ryan and Winston and heroes like that as much as I can on like Smurfs. But when the patch drops, I'm gonna be grinding a bunch of Orisa, which is today. So I'm gonna be grinding a bunch of Orisa because it looks like that's what the meta's gonna be for a long time. So yeah.
Do you feel like it's gonna be difficult for you to get back the muscle memory for Orisa now that you're not practicer, or maybe for other heroes if you're gonna have to pick them back up, like Ryan, Winston, etc.?
I've still been playing Orisa on and off. Obviously, she is the meta, so like some ranked games, you just have to play her. It's not like I haven't played her at all. I think like a week of grinding her, and I'll be back to like top shape with her. Like I feel like my best form on Orisa was during World Cup. And, now I feel like I can get that back pretty quickly. I just need to grind for like a week or so, and then I'll get the like feeling back for it.
How big of a deal was World Cup 2018 for you?
2018 was pretty crazy, actually. So I was already signed to Boston at the time, but I don't know if I didn't do what I did at World Cup and UK didn't do what we did at World Cup. I don't know if I ever would have actually started for Boston and been brought up to play like Ryan. So World Cup was like huge for that, and also just like social presence. Like people didn't know who I was. I had like 2,000, maybe 2,500 followers on Twitter, and over that day and night, I woke up the next day with like 8,000 followers on Twitter. So that was like crazy. That was like a huge event for publicity, and like people actually knowing my name was kind of crazy as well.
How did your Twitch like grow from that? What were Twitch numbers before and then after?
So before that, I averaged about 20 to 30 viewers on my streams. I'd already won contenders, so people watched me sometimes for like that sort of thing. But I was like the least popular player on Hurricane at the time because people didn't know who I was, and I was on a team with like Craggy and Kib, obviously, so like big names. But then after World Cup, I was averaging, I think I did a VOD review stream afterwards, and right after I was averaging about 400 viewers. Obviously during OWL I couldn't stream that much, and that dropped, especially now that it's Orisa. People don't really want to watch Orisa as much, so now I sit at around 100 to 150 on different days when I'm playing ranked. It just depends when I stream, but like it's it was like a huge impact for sure, considering I had like max 30 average before.
Was it more the way you streamed that kept you, how to say, I don't want to make it sound bad, but less popular than Craggy or whoever it was? Or was it the content itself, so to say?
Well, this is like when I was in contenders, before World Cup 2018, before OWL, before I was in OWL, I mean. So it was kind of different. Like Craggy was already a very popular streamer. Kip was a super well-known player. I had Haffycool and Bok on my team, who had already been like super good on 1, 2, 3 in contenders before that. So everyone on my team was like well known, except for like me and Funny Astro at the time. We were like the only unknown players then. So we were just like the least popular players by default.
What did you do in order to keep growing, so to say? Not only just the brand, but also as a player after World Cup, before, during the off season, I guess, and then slightly into the off season in stage 1, getting over the stage nerves, getting adjusted to the practice routine, everything. How did you go about it?
I don't really feel like I did anything special in terms of practice routine. I just sort of kept going with it. I think my attitude towards stage matches changed a lot over the OWL season, which is something that's really hard to adjust to, because I kind of went in sometimes thinking that I needed to be super energetic and hyped up, and I played better like that because that's kind of what my performance in World Cup, how that happened, my early performances now. But then I slowly started to like realize when you've got experience, when you're like a veteran, so to say, it's better to just keep calm and help out your teammates by being as normal as you can in sort of scrims and stuff. So like you are in scrims. So I just sort of did my best to keep it like calm in matches after that. But that's the only like specific thing.
So yeah, for the listeners and viewers out there that don't know how you are in scrims, like what do you define as normal, and then how do you even help your teammates? Because like you're just gaming there for casuals, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm always a very, very loud and vocal player. I mean, most people will probably know that already. But pretty much I like, in scrims, I'll be sort of, it's going to sound weird, like I'm very loud, but I'm also collected and like sort of calm in this at the same time. Like my comms will be very screamy sometimes, but I will always be consistent with what I'm calling and saying the same things. And people sort of come to rely on those comms when you're a part of a team and you do that all the time. So if in a match I start to get hectic and I don't start shot calling as consistently as I normally do, and instead I'm like screaming targets or like panicking myself, then that has like a big impact on the team. So I have to really make sure that I'm calling consistently and being like, consistent is like the main thing, as much like I usually am in scrims in terms of calling, because if you start getting more hectic than in scrims, it like has a big impact on the team. They have to like fill in the gaps and stuff.
Yeah, would you say it's similar to, I don't know if you've heard it, but comms in racing, for example, when you have one reading a map and then another guy driving, and the guy reading the map has to be concise, loud, but also centered.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. I've seen it a little bit of like the racing stuff. I don't really know how it's like structured properly because I haven't watched it that much, but I guess it's kind of similar. Yeah, like when you're playing any team game, you get used to a certain way of practice with your team, and you change variables up in the way that you speak or communicate to your team, and suddenly they're going to be like, in their heads, it's like, oh, why are they changing that? And then they naturally start to try and fill those gaps. So yeah, it is kind of like that.
Did you notice any difference from your own perspective, like with self-awareness, going from 2018 to 2019 and now heading into 2020? How have you, what's the patterns that you've seen in your growth as a player? When it comes to the competition, so to say.
Yeah. I don't know. When it comes to competition, I feel like my attitude towards, like I said before, like stage matches particularly has changed quite a lot. I also feel like there was a long period of time where I felt like I needed to be the hype guy and like keep everyone like making sure everyone was like feeling good and wanted to play and stuff. But I've slowly come to realize that in Overwatch, you don't really need to do that. Even as a team leader, the most important thing that you need to do is just keep people grounded. So I've tried myself to try and just use different things before, like just use like keep myself like as stable mentally as I can. Don't think drastically different things going into matches. Like I always try and keep myself calm, basically, and that's just like my primary thing now. Like a year ago, I didn't really do that. A year ago, I was a lot more looking at matches as this hype thing, you know. Like I really needed to perform, and that can either sometimes can make you perform really well if you do well with the adrenaline, but sometimes it can take a big hit on your performance if you don't perform how you want, and that's like something I struggled with and really affected me mentally during the season. So I've learned from that.
Would that, how to say, big hit when you don't perform come from the pressure you put on yourself, or from pressure that you created by consistently being the hype guy, and then the crowd seeing, okay, he's not hyped this time, or a mix of both?
I'm not really sure about this. Like, I don't really think. Maybe when I was more of a rookie to Owl on the big stage, I was like more concerned about what people think. But nowadays, I don't really. I think as a pro player, if I was to give advice to any pro players, it would be don't listen to anything that goes on like Reddit, unless it's like educational content by people you respect and trust. If it's just like Reddit comments and stuff, you should never read that sort of thing. So I don't really worry about what the public is saying, because it's really unhealthy for a player's mental. to look at comments. I mean, especially coming from a team that didn't do so well last season, if I'm sitting there looking at all these comments and reading them, obviously the overwhelming amount of majority is going to be negative. So I don't really like that. But in terms of like, for myself, like I think most players at the OW level and below that are very upset when they don't perform themselves. Most players at the pro level are smart enough to look at themselves and realize when they don't perform well and sort of reflect on that. And if you don't perform well, it definitely takes a big hit on you. So that is definitely the biggest factor for me. Like if I don't perform well, it definitely affects me mentally quite badly.
What was the thing that kept you going during last season when Boston had a rough time, switching out players, switching the tank line, supports, everything? It was pretty wild. I don't want to go into like the roster decision and all that stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But how did you deal with that? What did you gather energy from?
Honestly, the biggest thing towards the end, when it was the roughest, after we'd just gone 1-6 in stage 3, and we were losing so much in stage 4. I mean, obviously we ended up going 0-7, but the thing that kept me going was actually, it's going to sound cheesy, but it was actually some of my teammates. Not like in the sense that they would like come and try and motivate me and stuff, just the fact that they were always working hard. So for example, Color Hex is the example I always use. Very hardworking guy, always looks at himself, never blames others. Really like what you want in a player. Sometimes he can be too hard on himself because of that, but like he's like the perfect example of what you want in a teammate. And anytime I would slack, which I think was quite rare, but like if I would ever sit there after a terrible scrim, which happened quite a lot, and I would sit there thinking like, what do I do? Like, this is horrible. Like, I just can't wait for this to be over, sort of thing. I would look around at my teammates, and there would always be one guy trying, and I would think like, how am I going to let my teammate try without putting in the effort myself? And that always made me put 100% in.
What would happen if you would become sick or like for a long time, or maybe even traded away? How do you think you would be? Maybe not so to say missed, but what would be the void, so to say, that you bring to the team? What's your like? We know
specifically. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I did a large majority of the comms last year. Blase was quite a smart player in the way that he would come up with like on the fly plans and stuff. And at a point, we tried to push more calling onto Blase, but he was like pretty quiet. Obviously, he's not there next season. But last season, I was the overwhelming majority of comms because we had quite a lot of quiet players on the team. So I think there'd be a big void in comms and something that they'd have to adjust to. In terms of as a player, outside of maybe Rhine meta, I don't think they would struggle that much. I think Axiom is a very good player. He didn't play last season just because of synergy reasons and the fact that my calling would be like a big void, but Axiom's a very good player, so I wouldn't be worried at all about the team if I was sick or couldn't play or something.
Did you ever feel like being on the starter spot when maybe Axiom would be better? Or did it ever feel that like he would be better than you? And was it conflicting, or how did that ever occur, so to say, to you, like from your perspective?
At points, yeah. Obviously, when you're performing bad, you're in the back of your mind, you're like, maybe this person deserves to play because I care about the team so much and I want them to win. I think in hindsight, a meta or a time that Axiom maybe should have seen playtime was towards the end of stage 2 when we opted away from goats and started playing the like DPS comps, triple DPS with like the wrecking ball against teams, because my wrecking ball wasn't very good, and that's a meta where you don't really need your main tank to be comming that much because you're kind of just looking for the openings to go in, and Axiom's wrecking ball is one of his best heroes alongside his Woodson. So I think Axiom definitely could have played there, and I think I would have understood completely. I think in goats, that was like my best meta in terms of like comms, leadership. So I definitely think that I should have been playing then. But the Orisa one was a tough one. I mean, it was an awkward time because both me and Axiom were scrimming going towards stage 4. And it was a bit awkward because what happened is we were scrimming both like dive and in the first couple of weeks and also like Orisa comps because we didn't know what were going to be better. Me and Blase tried to push the Orisa comps a bit more. towards the rest of the team and the stuff because I thought it was going to be the best, which it obviously ended up being. But it was awkward for Axim because he practiced a lot of Winston and Ball in case those were meta, and I ended up practicing a lot of Orisa, so I just ended up by default be playing because I played a lot. But now I'm at a point where I'm really confident in my Orisa, so it's a bit of a weird situation. But I think stage 4 was just awkward for him. Obviously, I just practiced a bunch more Orisa, so it was kind of unlucky. Any ball meta, I definitely think he can play Winston. Like he's really good at Winston.
Now, going into 2020, what's your plan for the, how to say, dealing with traveling? Because if I remember correctly, Boston is going to travel a lot, aren't you? And how do you plan on keeping up practice, content, all that stuff?
Most of that stress will taken up by the management and the content teams and stuff. So the players won't really have to worry about it. Obviously, we'll have to do like that sort of thing, but the staff are going to do their absolute best to make sure that we don't have to deal with that stuff as much as possible. The travel side of it itself and playing matches while traveling, it's a bit of a double-edged sword for us because on one hand, we've got a lot of very young, motivated players like Swimmer and Mufin, for example, who are like super, super motivated. They really want to perform. They're really excited to travel. So I know that players, like all of the young players on our team, are going to be really up for like traveling and going for it in that sense. So I think I'm really optimistic about that side of things. Obviously, in terms of what I said, like the double-edged sword, it is like a lot of players like that aren't used to traveling. I've traveled quite a lot now in the last couple of years for Overwatch, so I'm kind of used to it. But like big traveling from like the US to China and stuff like that is going to be really draining. But we're just going to do our best to make sure. I know Huck already said it on his AMA yesterday. Like eat properly and we sleep properly and we make sure we keep all of the things going that you need to keep healthy normally. And that's just what we're going to do our best in order to play the matches at the best of our ability.
Yeah. So go up to this point. Would you say there's any team, coach, players, just maybe friends that prepared you more than the other team, so to say, to get ready for Watch League, to get ready for World Cup, to get ready for everything, like, when it's all summed up?
In terms of like players and coaches, I learned a lot from all of the players and staff on Hurricane during my time there. Obviously, I was on there for 9 months, that team, Hurricane. Well, officially signed to them. I was on the team for a bit longer than that before we were signed to C9. But so I learned a lot from all of those players. Like I said before, I was very inexperienced going into that team compared to all of the players on that team. Players like Haffy, I learned so much from. Definitely wouldn't be the player I am today without them. But also, actually, there was a team in the past before Hurricane, which I actually got dropped from, which was Mosaic, which was actually quite a stacked roster looking back on it. But back then we weren't very much. It was like me, Visility, Lude, Bromas was on the team back from the old Dignitas. So it was like a very old team, but I got booted from that team and my confidence was like really low before I got booted, and that was like part of the reason I got dropped from that team. And I really reflected from that experience and realized that like how much as a leader I need to be confident. Like when I went into that team and I trialed for that team, they picked me instantly above every other tank because of my confidence and my calls, my comms. And then towards the end, I started doubting myself, and it really had an effect on me and made people like really question my leadership. And throughout the rest of my career, from that point, I sort of matured a lot in the sense that I realized that I have to be sure of myself if as a leader, if I want other people to follow me and trust in me. So that was like definitely the biggest reflection point in my career where I think I really made a big improvement. And obviously from then I went up and up, like Hurricane, World Cup, and now. So it really shows like mentality is like a big part of it, especially as a leader. You really need to focus on yourself and make sure you're confident in what you're saying. And don't doubt yourself or your teammates. It's really important.
Yeah. And one last thing before wrapping it up. The Minecraft meme, being Steve, how did that, affect you? How did it start out and then, develop?
I mean, like growing up in like secondary school, which is like high school for like people outside of the UK. I always had like friends like poke jokes at it, right? Like it never really offended me. I'd say maybe when I was like a younger teenager, like when I was like 14, 15, it got to me a bit because everyone goes through like is a bit like self-conscious about their appearance and stuff at that time, right? But like as I grew up, I just started to deal with it, you know. Like I mean, I don't like. Yeah, I think it's funny. I think the jokes and the memes are funny. So when people started doing it now, my friend group like joined in with it. Like all of my closest friends online, like they're like memeing about it as well. I just thought it was so funny, and I think it's good to have. It's actually good for like your brand to have memes like that about you because it gives people something to be interested in, you know. So I just go along with it. I honestly think it's funny. Like it's not really offensive.
No.
You know, it's not like people are saying. It's not like people are like making fun of my appearance. They're just saying that I look like Minecraft Steve, which is like, you know.
Yeah.
I just take it on the chin. It's quite literally. I think it's. I just think it's really.
Oh yeah.
I like the meme.
Do you have anything to plug? Something you're doing? Maybe I don't know, social media, anything else?
Not really. I'm not really working on anything specific. I'm just preparing for the owl season, but I will be doing a few streams. So,
what's your Twitch?
twitch.tv/fusions_OW. That's my Twitch. I stream there semi-regularly in the time off. Haven't streamed a lot recently because I've been just practicing and waiting for the patch. But when the patch comes out, I'm going to be grinding. So yeah.
What about Twitter, Instagram, YouTube?
My Twitter is just @fusions. I post on there all the time. If you want to follow me in one place and one place only, Twitter is the place to do it. That's where I'm most active, where I say the most things. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't really use Instagram that much. So
No worries. Cool. Thank you for joining, man.
No, it was a pleasure. No, it's really nice.
See you, man.
Thank you.